Welcome everyone to our financial bank webinar, Building Financial Power. Our topic today is how to prepare for life's challenges. And with us, we're very excited to have Bank of America. And our presenters today are Stacy Turek and Artie Atadaria. And we're going to be hearing a lot of great information from them that they have prepared for us. And I'm going to kick it over to Stacy now to introduce herself and we can get started. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much, Brenda. My name is Stacy Turek. I've been with the bank for 18 years as of next month. I currently am Senior Vice President over the procedure team. We have about 36,000 procedures and serve about 85,000 end users across the bank with procedures that outline the tasks that they perform to do their job. So I love the role. I feel privileged every day to have it, and so glad to be here. Artie's going to take you through the first half of the material today on short-term financial guidance when life's unexpected challenges happen, and then I will go to the long-term. But with that, let me turn it over to Artie so she can introduce herself and get started.
Thank you, Stacy. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. So I'm Artie Atadaria. I've been with the bank for 12 plus years. I'm a Senior Vice President over the Erica team. So Erica is an artificial intelligence-based application, which is actually a financial concierge, you may say, just like Siri. You can talk to Erica and to answer all your financial-related questions. So very glad to be working for state-of-the-art application within the bank. And today I'm going to talk about our financial guidance to help you with the impact on coronavirus we had on a short-term basis. And of course, this will talk about the long-term. So let's get started. Okay. I want to go to the next slide, Stacy. Cool. So as we continue to feel the impacts of corona, I mean, we all feel behind us by now, but honestly, it's kind of still there somewhere lingering, right? I mean, it's not totally gone, and people can still feel the need and for the financial how to manage stuff and everything. So we're going to look at the immediate needs as well as the long-term opportunities. So let's go to the next slide, and I can go through different ways how we can save and address. We can go to the next one.
All righty.
Or you can just stay up here. That's fine. I'll talk to those first. Yeah. Can you go back one slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. So there are 6 ways we can tackle our financial stress. I mean, it is a stress, right? I mean, it's one kind of a stress we all have to go through. So the 6 things have been identified, which can really help us. First being identify what needs the attention. I mean, unless you don't know what you want to fix, you can actually fix it, right? So let's talk about that. So first and foremost, the biggest thing is to whatever the money challenges you know, what you're up against, whether it's making your monthly bill payments or saving for retirement, it's important to focus on the main sources of financial anxiety. Keeping the list short can help you feel less overwhelmed. So it's kind of, you have to prioritize what you need to do immediately, right? And keep the list short. You can, I mean, there'll be 20,000 things, but you don't want to write down all of those. Just write like top 10 and then focus on that. That's your first thing to identify your needs, what needs attention. And of course, have to be positive. I mean, try to stay positive in all circumstances. I mean, unless you don't do that, it's not going to help you. Your mindset can help you motivate to fix your financial problems. I mean, half the problems can be solved if you are positive. I mean, I'm a firm believer of that myself personally. So rather than just get bogged down by thoughts of never getting out of the debt, imagine the amount of stress you feel decreasing as your debt kind of loads up. So like just worrying never helps. So I'd just like to share one more thing over there. I don't know if you have anybody read this book by Carnegie. It's called Stop Worrying and Start Living. If you've not read that book. I mean, just a little bit more information there, but it talks about all kinds of stress in that book. It's a really good one. That's my personal go-to book. When I'm feeling stressed, I just read one chapter out of it and I'm kind of back on track. So that's my personal thing. Thought I'll share with you guys. and be realistic. I mean, you have to do what you can do, right? I mean, you might want to go and do great things, but you have to be realistic, like what is there. Determine what you can reasonably achieve, and then dedicate yourself to following through each and every month about that. Make yourself a promise, like each month I will spend less and put a difference towards my debt. Like if you have a debt, to understand how you're going to pay that off. I mean, a little goes a long way. You cannot just take all your money and pay the debt, because you have to live your life on day-to-day basis as well. So just it's like a crash diet, right? You can just do like a crash diet and you think you're done. No, it's going to come back. It's okay to it's better to do slowly and gradually, go for a walk every day, start with a mile, go to the second mile, third mile. It's going to help. The same thing applies here as well. Fourth one, will make the most of your income. The belief that you simply don't have enough money to put towards your goal is kind of keeping you from dealing with the financial problems, right? I mean, you always kind of worry. So they're saying, don't worry. Worry never helps. It's always good to think through it. Try to focus on the most of the income you do have by spending wisely. So that's why we always say, make a list. What you have to do. That's the first thing recommended. Identify the needs. What has to be addressed. That's your first thing to be done, and everything else will start falling into place. Fifth one would be small steps are the key. As I was saying earlier as well, you may not be able to cut any one expense by say $500. I'm not going to do this and I cut this expense by $500. It doesn't work that way. We have to be practical, right? I mean, you can, but rather you can do okay, maybe I'm spending $600 on my grocery. I can reduce that by $500 and make it only spend $500, or try different ways. If your electricity bill or utility bills are coming way higher, you can think of adjusting that a little bit. A notch up on your AC can make a huge difference. So all those small things and cutting down on every little thing can eventually lead to that 500 saving. But just thinking, hey, I'll start dieting, not eat, it's not going to help, right? You may get sick and other problems may arise. So keep your steps small and try it out. Lastly, but not a small thing, keep yourself honest throughout this process. It's very, very essential. Leaning on your relationships can help keep you on track. So it's always we say, buddy system helps. Even if you're exercising or something, same things help here. You can discuss with your family or someone close to you in your relationship, how are we going to do this? And say, hey, I have this goal which I've set for myself. Well, can you help me be accountable for it? And that helps. And it keeps you honest, and you can work towards your goal. So sharing a goal is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. If anybody has any questions or something, you can put in the chat and we can go to that later. However you want to do it, Brenda, or you can just stop me.
That's fine.
Yeah, I've got a lot of materials. So maybe if I'm going a little fast, just feel free to stop me. Okay, moving on. You want to go to the next slide, please? For some reason, it kind of cuts off on my screen. I don't know why. Okay, advantage of government help. So there's tons of government help out there. I mean, it's a matter of finding where and how you can get to it. Many things kind of started out federal, state, local governments have taken a number of steps to address the financial impact during the coronavirus time. But even people feel it's behind us, there are still many resources out there which you can check it out. So I kind of looked up earlier. If you go to the USA.gov and you look for the resources, I mean, tons of information is there. Everything you need will be there. And you can look for the student loans, how you can address that, whether it's a mortgage, how can you take care of it, whether you can, talk to your creditor and see, what, I can need this. Can you reduce my payments or make a schedule change for me, or anything you can ask for it, and they will help you out there. even on the taxes, unemployment insurance, and if you were like furloughed or you had lost your job or something happened, in that case, there are resources which you can tab on and which will be helpful. And so you can go and check on USA.gov. I think there are some links when we send this presentation out. You can look into those and it will help you out there as well. But there's some of them. Even I also looked up, there is also the funeral expenses, like specifically during the coronavirus, there was they were giving, if somebody died out of coronavirus, there was some funeral expenses were paid. So you just fill out the form, request everything, fill out information, and within 45 days, they might come back and let you know whether they have covered you or not. So like tons of resources are out there. It's just a matter of seeing who qualifies versus not. So look out for that. It will be very, very helpful. Okay, I want to go to the next page, please. Next slide. Yeah, so these slides are already talking about the different advantages. Like for student loans, you can do direct loans or program loans. Some of them might have changed with coronavirus when this kind of kicked off. But as I said, you can go to USA.gov and you can look up for all the details and you'll find the current information over there. You can go to the next one. Similarly, for the mortgages, as I said, the best way is to contact your lender. They can help you out. They can let you know what is available for you, for what type of loan you have and what they can do. And most of the lenders I know it's like very helpful. They will surely help you out and help you in this kind of crisis time. We'll go to the next
slide. All righty.
Yep, please. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this. 11 money moves to make after a job is lost or a pay cut. So that's kind of, things can happen. As we always say, life happens to everyone, right? So something, if it happens, what you can do, some like immediate things you can take care of. I mean, millions of workers are concerned about their financial future and well-being. If you're laid off, what happens? If there's a furlough, you don't know what you're going to do on the next thing. If you're the only member earning in your family, if you don't have a spouse or somebody to support, how are you going to do? You don't have enough financial support, how are you going to handle? So simple things you can do is, for example, collect your final payment. If you're laid off, you can ask your employer about your last paycheck and how you will receive it. Some employers kind of only send on the schedule they have, like every 15 days payments, accordingly been sent, but if you need it, you can always ask them, like, how can I get it sooner? And I'm sure they can help you out over there. It all depends on the state you live in. So laws differ from the employer to employer and the state. So, but you can always check. Unless you don't ask, you won't find out, right? So that's one thing you can ask. And there are employee handbooks, which you can refer to. Even if like you're not furloughed or not lost a job, there's no harm in looking up in advance, just to be aware. I mean, as I said, life happens, you don't know. So just to be aware about what can be done, you can always go and look into that. Apply for the unemployment benefits. So most of the states, if you get let go or you're furloughed, you may qualify for the weekly unemployment insurance benefits and the payments. If you have a pay cut or something happens, your hours are reduced, you can still get your unemployment benefits. Again, it all depends on the state, so it's better to check with that. And there is, I think there was some act, CARES Act in 2020 passed, which kind of made it a little bit more easier. So you can read about all that as well, and it will be very helpful. Prepare for an emergency budget. I mean, that's always needed, right? You should always think about the emergency. Just don't know what's going to happen. So always prepare for one. If you haven't already created one, create one. You can do it on a monthly basis. It doesn't have to be like think about 1 year or 2 year or something like that. Just create a monthly budget because it's going to be very, very helpful. Start breaking out the money you expect to have coming during this time from your own income, your partner's income, or unemployment, severance package, or anything, and make like what's coming in and what you will actually spend. So that's going to be really, really helpful. What are you going to spend on like groceries, your bills you have to pay, the rent you have to pay, the non-essential things, and the subscription services. I mean, some things you can kind of cancel out too, right? If it's not important, and those things can really help. Gym memberships, and stuff like that. Many times we kind of enroll into certain things and then we forget about it. Like, hey, what this money is going for? And like, oh, I enrolled in this subscription. I wanted to see this show, and now I'm still not even watching that. Do I really need Netflix? Maybe you don't. Something like that. You know, it's just because it's like auto enrollment, they'll keep charging you every month, right? So to be very careful, to always read your statements when you get it, and make sure you have enough insurance. So when you lose your job, you lose your insurance, because most of the people here in the US, our insurances are tied with our work. So be aware about that. And some companies do provide, like, okay, you lost your job, you can continue insurance for next month or so, but I don't know. That's why you have to go and look at your employee handbook, which will be useful in any circumstances, right? What happens if you have to go and buy insurance from outside? Because once you lose your job, you cannot be there without insurance, because what if you get sick? It's very important to immediately get insurance, and enough insurance which can meet your medical emergencies. And there are like government health insurance marketplaces where you can shop for it. There are a lot of outside resources as well. So look for that. We'll go to the next slide, Stacy.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Okay. So next, that was all act now thing, like you have to do immediately, you have to work on those things, right? What you can do in upcoming few next month or so time frame. If you have a financial crunch, go to the people who owe you money. There's no harm, because you help them in their need. It's your turn now. You need it, right? So go and talk to them. Tell them, like, I have so many upcoming bills to pay. I owe you so many things. And can you please give me? There's nothing wrong about it. And when you can also go to many banks and lenders, like they have relief policies, which kind of help you to ease the burden during this time. So you can also talk with them. That also helps. You can also talk to your cable provider, telephone provider, and sometimes they help you to delay your payments or lower your rates and stuff like that without actually hitting any late fees. Because you have to be careful. You don't want any late fees to be hit, because if that goes, it can go in your credit report, right? So you have to be careful there as well. Tap your emergency cash options. Like if you have, as we talked about earlier, right? Always create a budget. It helps in emergency. So you can tap onto that. Now is the time to use it. However, if your savings are drained and you're concerned about your ability to cover the day-to-day expenses, consider borrowing options. If there's any associated risk, for example, if you borrow, you have to be aware there will be rate of interest attached with it. You have to pay that back. So you have to be careful of what you are trying to buy. You cannot keep on billing on a credit card always, because credit cards are very highly rated. The interest rates are way high. So always look for the option and accordingly act. And as I was mentioning, you can look into the CARES Act, which has some good resources as well. And even like if you have your 401k, I think if life happens, emergencies, I think you can tap on those resources as well. So look for all of those options. Talk to your colleagues, friends, family, and people have so much information. That's my next point. Talk to your family. I didn't even realize, it just came to my head. So losing your job is of course scary, and it can be for your children as well. So have a very candid, appropriate conversation. I mean, you always want to keep your children kind of away from any worries and stuff, but it's okay to, like, you know, explain things and say, hey, you know, right now I'm going to sleep, but don't worry, we're gonna get the solution. So at least they're aware and like they're not panicking or anything. So it's very important to talk to your family. Scale back on your savings for college. So everybody kind of prepares and puts the money for the college, but at the same time, it's important if you're putting like every month the $500 out for your college fund for a kid, but now the times have changed, you can scale back on it. Like maybe for next few months, you can just save 100. And because that's for the future, right? And you can go and tap on it later. And even you can consider options of letting your friends and family know, hey, when you give for birthday gifts or Christmas gifts, can you just contribute to our child's college fund? That's a great way of saving as well. Okay, moving on to the next slide, please. Okay. shop for low interest offers. So it all kind of ties together what we talked earlier. Always shop. There's tons and tons of options out there. I was saying earlier, don't just use your credit card and balance it out because those interest rates are pretty high. So try out for different other options. Enter the gig economy. What it means is finding full-time work can be a full-time job as well. It could take months for a new position. There are many steps you can take. It helps assess your career goals and think out whether you can change the industries, you can do something else, try a new skill. You can update your resume and profile on professional social media platforms like LinkedIn, and it can help you out there as well. All these things can really help you out. Pay it back and pay it forward. Once you start earning money again, it's a good rule of thumb to stick to streamlining the budget you used during your unemployment while you were out of work. So, I mean, you learn the ways of saving, right? It's better to kind of stick to it and understand things happen. So it's better to budget it out, keep the emergency funds, and paying down the debt. Whatever debt, you have to pay it down immediately. And start building your credit. It's very important. Okay, moving on to the next slide, please. Reaching out to the creditors. Okay, let's talk about check with your creditors to see if they have announced any relief policies. Any did during the coronavirus. Maybe some have extended, some might have ended, but you can always check on that. And they can accommodate your needs, and it will be really helpful. The next slide. Let's see what's on the
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking they might have so cable and the phone companies. I mean, there are so many of them out there, right? And they keep us connected, but you can see what your provider is, what you've signed up for, and how it's going to help you. That really helps. Then you can also go to utility companies. Policies vary around the country, but many major gas and electric companies have temporarily kind of agreed not to turn off the service to customers during the corona. So all this information, I mean, kind of we are behind it now, but you can still reach out to them. I'm sure they can help you out if you're in any kind of crisis. Even for the landlords or the tenant, you have to pay for your bills. You can reach out to them and make sure if they're struggling to make a rent payment, how can you get it done? Directly contact them. It really helps to talk it out and explain the situation rather than just sit on it and worry about it. Next slide, please, Stacy. Okay. Again, credit card. Many major lenders are supporting customers in need by waiving the late fees and offering deferred payments. So they will waive your late fees. They'll offer you a deferred payment, but eventually you have to pay. So keep that in mind. And typically deferred or suspended loan payments can show up on your credit report. So that's very, very important. But some banks are offering to suspend that reporting as well. So you can check on those resources and find out. If you have any kind of life emergency, you can always talk to your lenders. They can always provide a solution. There are so many programs out there, but it's just a matter of explaining the situation and talking it out. There's an option here if you're a Bank of America customer, you can request a payment deferral as well. Auto lenders, same thing. It's one of the creditors. You can talk to them and they can always provide you the options. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, negotiating with the creditors. That's something which can actually be really, really overwhelming. So you have to be, I mean, it's not easy. I can understand totally, So it's good to talk with them. It's like, if there's a whole video, you can go and see it later. I just give you the key points out of it. So if there is any kind of lost job, medical emergency, and suddenly anything happened, you can meet the ends. And if you're in such a situation, you cannot make your payments or debts or bills you owe to the creditors, and take your action now. Don't wait on it. The best thing is to negotiate with your creditors. Call them. There are a few tips I can give you on how you can negotiate. So before you make that call, make sure to get all your paperwork ready. So that way, at least you have everything handy to talk to them and you're well prepared. So it's very, very important. And I can understand it can be overwhelming. They can have so many questions. It sometimes can be a frustrating process, but it's going to take patience and persistence. So I'm sure you can do that and you have to do that. And so again, going to the previous point we discussed, it's very important to be realistic. about what you can actually afford to pay each month toward your debts, right? I mean, you have a debt, you want to pay, you're talking with the creditor. That's why you want to do your paperwork, get everything ready, note down like what your income is going to be, how you're going to make this happen, have that budget which you have prepared ready with you. All this information will come handy with you. And in many circumstances, possible, the creditor might be willing to accept the less than total amount you owe, but of course, fully understand the repercussions of it. If you settle for a lower balance, could it show up on your credit report? So ask all those questions. So that's why it's very important to write up everything you want to talk to them, prepare yourself, and then start. And of course, when new questions come, you can always ask for the help and do everything right. And there are a lot of resources out there as well. I think Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also has many resources and tips on how to respond to your creditors. So maybe you can look into them as well, and that would be really helpful. And you can always look at this video, which is like really great, and you can listen to it and have all the great tips in it, a few of them which I called out for you. Next slide, please. Okay. So review your monthly budget. It's important, like not just write it up on a page and keep it aside. Have to look into it on a regular basis because things change, right? Expenses change. So you want to do that. Look over your credit card statements for recurring charges for service and membership, which I kind of talked about earlier as well, like things which you might not need. You might not be going to a gym, or something you signed up for or your kids or something, which you can kind of cancel it out. Because all those things kind of add up. And like, for example, if you're staying or working from home, you may already be saving certain expenses like gas, right? So you can think about, okay, I'm saving here. How can I put this money aside for future? Or if I can pay off some debt because I'm saving on my gas money, things like that, you can think about it. If you don't have to go to the gym, you can cancel that membership, just go for the walk in your own neighborhood or in a park. So get your exercise done, right? You want to go to the next slide, please? Okay. So this is a kind of spreadsheet, which is pretty simple. It shows about a spending plan worksheet. Kind of hard to zoom in though, right? So this spreadsheet, I'm sure when Brenda sends you out, you can look into it. It's just talking about your planned spending versus actual spending for every different thing. And you can add more things based on your own scenario. What kind of spendings you have? You have a mortgage to pay, your groceries, your utilities, your other expenses, kids, school-related work, everything. You can put everything which kind of your expenses are. You can plan, okay, I'm going to spend so-and-so amount, and then you can look into it end of the month. Okay, I had planned to spend 500 on my groceries. Actually, I spent 550. How can I cut down? Or it can happen, I only spent 400. Hey, I saved 100. So that's a good thing. So next monthly budget, you can adjust accordingly and look into saving that money or paying down your debt. So this spending plan can help you in many ways. As I said, you can change it, but you have to go through it every month and review it. You cannot just do one time and keep it aside. So this helps you a lot. Okay, want to go to the next slide, please?
Whoops. I got a little overzealous.
Okay, so if you're working from home, I mean, many people I know still are kind of working from home. There are 5 areas where you might be able to see some savings and some suppressed spending changes as well. I mean, many people think, oh, I'm working from home, I'm just saving. No, that's not always true. You're kind of spending as well. So for example, like for the kitchen area, you're not actually eating out as much or something, then you there's a potential saving there, right? So that's one thing. But again, there's a hidden cost, like you're spending more on the groceries. You have to be careful over there as well. So it's not like, oh, I'm not going out to eat, I can buy $50 more grocery, but then it comes to the same thing, right? So you have to be careful about those hidden costs over there. So we always advise on meal planning and making the most of your leftovers. It goes a long way. I personally do that all the time. It really goes well. The day I don't go to the grocery shopping without a list, I end up buying so much more, which I really don't have to. But then I realize, oh, why did I buy all these things? Because I didn't have a list with me. Rather go with a list, then you'll be like, on spot. The garage kind of area. So you're not going to work, so saving on your gas, tolls, or wear and tear of your car and vehicle maintenance and stuff. But other charges might be there, right? You might be spending something else or going out for just the leisure drives and stuff like that. So to be careful on those things as well. I mean, it can be anywhere. Hidden costs are always there. The playroom area. So it's talking about the childcare. For many parents, they have to have someone to take care of the kids, but if you're working from home, maybe you can take care of them, or you might not need all that childcare which is needed. So that can be a little saving, but sometimes the remote learning and things can also add up. So you have to look for those hidden costs as well. You can look for the flexibility options with your employer. Many employers started providing the flexibility options post-coronavirus because people did understand the need of it, right? So that's one of the things. So the next slide, please. So again, the wardrobe. Honestly, always thought like, oh, I'm saving so much. I'm not going to work. I don't have to like iron my clothes. I don't have to always wear all my official attire, business clothes, and don't have to shop that frequently. But then sitting at home, playing with Amazon, I kind of kept on buying, right? So it was like all those impulsive shopping trends are on the rise. So you have to be careful there. I mean, it's just like, oh, it's a sale. I mean, just I think yesterday I was like, oh, that's 75% off. Oh, wow, it's just a $10 top. Should I buy it? Do I need it? I don't think so. But just because it was $10, I got attracted to it, right? So you have to be like careful about all those things. So just like a separating from wants from the needs, like I don't need it. I was just kind of wanting it because the price attracted me, but then it's just adding to my credit card bill. So I have to be careful over there. All those hidden costs, right? The home office. So many, I've heard about this. You have to work with your tax consultant on it. Like some, if you're working from the home, you can have certain tax benefits to it. So look out for there and find out. But at the same time, you have to understand, many people think, hey, I'm just working from home, so I'm saving so much on gas and blah and all these things. But remember, utility costs, because all the time in the house, your AC bill is cranking up. In winters, your heater is cranking up all the time. So all those hidden costs kind of add up. So be careful about that as well. So consider some energy smart movements, and it can really help you out there. I want to go to the next slide. We talked about, is this your section long term, Stacy?
I'm sorry.
Is this
where you want me to take over?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I can. So when you find yourself at a loss of income, whether it's a job or some other source of income that you had that you no longer have, it's going to be incredibly important, as Artie's been bringing us through, is, well, so how am I going to make it? How am I going to make it work? So you're going to want to look at things that you can go to for your emergency cash. And I will say, I love the way this is ordered here, because it put your retirement accounts as number 5. And that's because whatever you have in retirement, you want to make sure that that is an absolute last option if you tap into this, because you're going to need this money. So let's start first with personal loans. So you may want to look at getting a personal loan if you are looking for emergency cash or some type of issue. And maybe you don't have a loss of income. Maybe it's some type of emergency expense that you weren't counting on, such as a medical bill that's unforeseen, that's not covered by your insurance, or something, or a huge car repair that you weren't expecting or you counting on, and you didn't have enough in your emergency budget to handle it. So you're going to want to look at personal loans. And so the reason I bring this up is because when you're working and when things are going well, you want to make sure that your credit score stays as good as you can possibly keep it. Because the less your credit score is, the higher your interest rate's going to go up. And that means the higher your monthly minimum is going to go up, or the higher it's going to cost for you to pull out that personal money. But you absolutely want to look at all your options. So if you need emergency cash, first of all, to get a personal loan, I would suggest going to your bank and looking there to see what options they have before I used my credit card, because your credit card's going to have quite a bit of interest on it. However, if you can't go to your bank and get a personal loan, then I would recommend looking at your credit cards and saying, well, what kind of balance, what kind of opportunity do I have with my credit card? Could I find a low interest like credit card? So for example, let's say that I have a sudden $2,000 expense that I don't have the money for. I didn't see it coming. Maybe my car broke down, and I don't really know what to do. It may be worth it to see what kind of lenders out there may have a low 90-day or 180-day zero interest or 2% interest, applying for that, getting that card, putting the $2,000 on it, and then making a plan to pay that off. That's another option that you could look into. I'm not embarrassed to tell you there have been times in my life where I've had to do exactly that, and I was thankful that I'd kept my credit score good and that I had enough savvy to go out there and find those things. It just takes a little bit of getting on the internet and shopping around, and you usually will find something. This third one is often an untapped consideration. So think about your home, and let me ask, is everyone here a homeowner, or do we have some people living in an apartment? We could have both. Okay.
Probably both.
So,
yeah.
Both? Okay. So if you have a home mortgage, if you have a home, and if you need that emergency cash, sometimes it's a good idea to maybe look at what a HELOC will provide to you. So if you have equity in that home, I would call my mortgager and tell them you'd like to apply for a HELOC and to see what kind of options you have. Generally, your HELOC loan is going to be at a lower interest than, say, a credit card or a personal loan. And then also you can sometimes get some tax advantages off of it. And if you don't need, let's say you get approved for a $50,000 home equity loan and you don't need $50,000, then don't use it. Let's say you only needed $2,000, then just use the $2,000 and pay that back. And also, if you have life insurance, and this would be up to the person, the company you have life insurance with, sometimes you can tap into your life insurance value, borrow against that, and then pay it back. You would just have to call your life insurance company to find that out. And then last but not least is that retirement account. And I can't stress this enough. I treat that as though it's sacred, because when you'd rather look for other ways to get money and when you're 45 than when you're 65. It's much easier to make more money at 45 than it is at 65. Now, it's there if you need it. And of course, if it's a critical enough situation, you should be glad you have it. I'm just saying use it as a very last resort. Are there any questions before I move to the next slide? Okay. So, sorry. So this particular slide provides you with a really good visual representation of what would be your lower risk options, your medium risk options, and your higher risk options. So let's start right here. So before you borrow, address your existing debts. Again, I started my portion of the presentation out. When things are going well and you don't, and they're going as you would expect, that's the time to be preparing for that emergency. Oh my gosh, what if my transition falls out of my car, or something else catastrophic happens? So you'd want to, because you may have to borrow money. And so you want to make sure, again, that your credit score is as high as you can possibly get it. So one of the ways you can do that is work on decreasing existing debt that you already have. And we did also say, I think Artie said this, talk to friends or family. You may have a friend or a family who's willing to loan you some money. You may also want to be careful of that too, especially if you're going to have some struggles paying it back. It's going to depend on, well, how much of a crisis am I in for this friend and family, because is it worth the potential risk I may lose that friend or family if I can't pay it back? So, but of course, if that friend or family is there and available, it may be a source you want to tap into. And then, of course, look at your employer, credit unions, or banks to see what kind of options they have. So those are your lower risks. Your medium risks are, taking a cash advance from your credit card. Again, it's one of the things you want to, it's going to be a higher interest rate, and you're going to want to make sure you pay it back as soon as you can, because you're going to continue to rack up money in interest. It's basically the cost of borrowing that money. So you're going to want to make sure that you're taking out only what you need if you're having to use a cash advance, and you're paying it off as quickly as you can. And again, borrowing from your retirement funds, I'm so glad that option is there. It's a medium risk, but you want to also make sure you're going to have to pay that back as well. There are requirements for that. And then, of course, borrowing against your home equity, that is also an option. And then just to give you a personal story, we recently did this about 5 years ago with my mother-in-law's house. My husband and I took out a home equity loan on her home because she needed it for advanced medical care. So we are paying that back on her behalf. But it was a godsend for us to make sure we could pay for that advanced medical care that she needed. And then higher risk are cashing out retirement funds. Again, this is a last-ditch effort if you just have no other options. Or then taking out a payday loan. That payday loan is going to cost you massive interest. So you want to only do that if you are in a dire circumstance. Any questions before I move on?
I just wanted to add, all these options always do your pros and cons on everything. I mean, everything has something good or something other issues. So it's always good to weigh it, and that budget sheet which you create will be really handy and helpful, like how much you really want to borrow and when you can pay, and always be realistic and honest about it.
Absolutely. So takeaways. So first of all, the takeaways are every loan carries risk, and it does. Every single loan, whether it's that credit card out there that you have or your car loan, they all carry risk. And then you're going to get this packet. So here are some sources that will also take you through what Artie and I have taken you through: emergency cash, what are your options? And then you can also learn more about Bank of America and how we can offer our customers assistance through Client Assistant Program website. And this is here too for you to take a look at. So let's talk about longer term opportunities. So let's say you are in a situation where things are going pretty good. Maybe you're not super wealthy, but you're meeting every day's obligations, and things are going great. This is the time to start planning, because as Artie said earlier, life happens to all of us. And sometimes there's absolutely no way you can predict it. Back in April, every time I drove down the highway, my little old car, and I drive a 10-year-old car, I don't buy a new car all the time, just started rattling everywhere it went. So I took it into a repair shop, and they're like, oh, you need brand new brakes, you need brand new tires, and it's going to be about $2,800. So now the good news is I had the $2,800, but I'm telling you, there have been times in my younger years where that $2,800 might have well been $28,000. I didn't have it. So, and then at those times I was like, well, my gosh, I wish I'd had an emergency budget. And so I could have tapped into that. So let's talk about how to get there. So, and if you remember about the sheet that Artie took you through, and I really want to encourage everybody to sit down with their family and go through that budget this weekend, because whether you're in a hard spot right now or you're in a good spot right now, every one of us is going to be in a hard spot at some point in our lives, because that's just how life works. And then we'll get to a good spot again, and then we might have another urgent issue. So you're going to want to sit here with that budget, and you're going to want to look at, well, what have I got that if I were to have an emergency fund and start creating an emergency fund, what is it that emergency fund needs to cover? And so you start here with, well, what is my rent or my mortgage? And in this illustrative example, it's $600. What are my groceries every month? I wish it was only $200. Mine's quite a bit more than that. But what do I spend on groceries? And what do I need to be spending on groceries? What is it that I just, let's buy that fancy peanut butter, or whatever the case may be. But what am I realistically spending on groceries? My utilities. I don't know where this person lives, but mine are more than 100. And any loans, any loans you may have, because like I said about that credit, you're going to want to keep your loans up to date and current. You don't want to go past due. So what are you really spending on those loans? And if you were in a time where you had an emergency going on, for your budget. You could justify only paying the minimum amount, and you're probably not doing that today. You're probably paying the minimum amount plus some. But you'd want to look at, well, what's the minimum that I'd have to pay on that loan? And then it shows clothing here. I've had times in my life where like, well, I just don't need to buy anything in my wardrobe. Well, that's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. You're going to have, you can't have holes in your shoes. And if you need new clothing, then you need it. So, but then you add all that up and you say, well, here's my total monthly expenditure. This is what the minimum I have to have. So then what you're going to do is you're going to want to say, well, then if I have to have $1,200 a month to cover my baseline expenses, and it's just me, you want to have about 3 months of those. And I know this sounds almost unattainable, but we're going to get there. Then I would need $3,600. So experts really say that if you're just creating an emergency budget for you, then you only need about 3 months stashed away in your emergency budget. But if you have another income earner in your family, say your partner or your partner is also working, but you have a partner, you have other obligations you have to worry about. You may want to have 6 months. And then if you are the only income provider, you may want to have 9 months. And I know sitting here, that sounds absolutely like it is not doable, but it is if you start when times are good. So let's talk a little bit about how do I get started. And the first thing is know your number. It is absolutely critical to know what is my baseline. So you'd want to get back to that sheet that already went through with us and say, okay, I've listed all those things out that I absolutely have to pay every single month. And that is the number I have to start with. So whether I need to have an emergency fund for 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months, I at least know what it is, and I have that goal that I can start working for. So then you're going to want to look, well, what is it that I have, and can I cut it out? So can I cut out haircuts? Probably not. But can I maybe, if I'm coloring my hair today, can I maybe stop that? Maybe you can. Am I getting, maybe I get my nails done every 2 weeks. Can I cut that out if I need to? I mentioned fancy peanut butter. Can I just eat Jif or something? Can I cut out the fancy and go down to a generic brand or even a lesser expensive name brand? So you look at those things that you're currently purchasing today to say, what can I give up that's not going to hurt too bad? It's not going to feel like that crash diet that Artie was talking about. What can I do? Take that away and then start saving that money and putting it towards my emergency fund. And then this is what I like, and this goes back to the diet that I already mentioned. Make it a routine. Once it becomes a routine, it becomes a habit, and then it becomes something that I can't give up. I need to continue to do it. And you're going to find that it can happen a little easier than what it sounds like. Like I said, $3,600 a month to have that stashed away may seem like completely undoable. But once you get into this routine of putting money towards that known number, it becomes much, much easier. The fourth thing is don't be tempted. It is so tempting when you see this, I've got my $3,600 put away. Oh, I could go, take a long weekend to San Antonio or whatever the case may be. And then I can just replace that money. That's probably not the right way to do it, because once you hit that stash, once it becomes a little more easier to hit that stash, that stash needs to be sacred to you. And it needs to have that purpose of, I only use this when I have an emergency in life that happens to me. And you don't use it for any other reason. You can create another budget for your fun vacation that's in addition to that emergency stash. And in fact, I would encourage you to do that. And most people who live along these lines, they'll have their emergency stash budget. They'll have a vacation budget. And for every one of these, they know what that number is. So they're constantly working towards it. It's a goal that they want to achieve. Home equity line of credit. Now, this was something I touched on just like 5 or 10 minutes ago. This is available on equity that you may have in your home. And if you, what this packet's going to tell you when you get it, basically, it's something you may want to consider. A HELOC may be something you may want to consider taking out on your home to supplement your emergency fund. Now, or use it for repairs and upgrades, et cetera. So remember, when you are working and things are going well, this HELOC is going to be more accessible to you. When you aren't working, there's a good chance the HELOC may not be accessible. So it's one of those things that if you need it to take care of repairs on your house or unexpected medical bills, it's a good area to tap into. Or if you think that a job loss might be imminent in the next 6 months, you may want to consider that, not spend it, but just keep it there for your emergency fund if you need it, and then pay it, continue to make your payments. It's much better than tapping into that than it is your retirement funds. Understanding your insurance. So I already referred to this as well. So you want to make sure you have adequate life, disability, and homeowners insurance. And I've known folks who have let their homeowners lapse, and then a storm comes and they have roof damage or whatever the case may be, and that can be a catastrophic expense. Or if you have a disability, it can be a catastrophic expense. So you want to make sure you have the right amount of insurance. You don't want to have, be overinsured, because that's a waste of money. But you want to make sure that you are covered or health, especially your health, because you don't want to break an arm, and that can cost a couple of $1,000s. So you want to make sure you keep that in, you have the best insurance you can get for the amount of money that you have. This HSA, I want to take a moment and talk to you about that. I have an HSA. That is how I insure my son and myself. And I tell you, I've used this HSA for maybe the last, 10 years, maybe more, maybe 15. And I absolutely love it. And here's why. So it is it's a health savings account. And it's usually used for, say, high deductibles or something of that, high deductible health insurance. The reason I love it is because that plan does work like an insurance company. Now I have to pay a higher than the normal deductible, but I get to pull from my HSA. And so what I do every month is I put some of my income into my HSA, and it continues to build and build and build and build. And then before you know it, I've got quite a lump sum there. So when I have something big, like my son's about to need new glasses, and I'm about to need another prescription of contact lenses, that's going to be a big ticket item that hits my budget. Because of my HSA, I won't even feel it. It'll go directly to my HSA. My HSA will pay for it, and it doesn't come out of my checking account or my savings account, or my normal savings account. So if you don't have one of these and your employer offers it, I highly recommend take a look at it. It will, once you've got a pretty good sum that you can use, you're going to love it. You're going to fall in love with it. My husband's employer does not offer it, and I hate it that they don't offer it. I wish they did, because I think he would benefit from it too. And it doesn't make sense for everybody. If you've got chronic illnesses in your family, or something that's that may not be the right answer for you. But if you're one of those normal folks who goes to the doctor every once in a while, gets your checkups, it could be the right plan. So lowering your borrowing costs. So it talks about taking steps now to reduce your monthly loan payments and free up some money for your budget. So I looked up mortgage rates today. It looks like they're at about 5%. So they're a little higher than they were a year ago, but they're still lower than what they could be. So if you have a mortgage rate that's, over 5% right now, you may want to start shopping around and say, can I lower that? It may be worth it. So, or considering, and maybe you only owe 20 years on your loan, but you may want to move that out to 30 and at a lower rate, so you can help accumulate that emergency fund. Not necessarily recommending it, because it is going to cost you more in interest payments. But at the same time, having that emergency fund is so incredibly important that that may make sense for you. And then credit cards. If you're paying down your credit card balance, again, look for a card that has a lower rate than what you're using today. It may be that they're out there, that lower interest rate will go so far into helping you pay that debt off. And I want to preach here too, and then I use the right word, preach, and get that credit card balance down. And all that interest you're paying is not anything that is doing you any good. You can't deduct it from your taxes. It's just money it's going to the bank, and it's not going to you when it could go into your pocket. And in fact, I want to challenge you, if you've got a credit card that's got a balance on it, or especially more than one credit card that's got a balance on it, I challenge you tonight to take a look at it and look at what those interest fees are every single month, and know that if you didn't have that balance, you wouldn't have to pay that. And that's money that could go right back into your pocket. So, want everyone to do that tonight, because it's probably eye-opening. I think a lot of us, and I can remember in my 20s and my 30s, I would just take a look at that minimum balance. I'm like, oh, I have $75. I think I'll up it to $100 to pay it off. And I never really looked at the interest I was paying as part of that $75. And then once I got older and I started looking, I'm like, oh, I could have bought a new pair of shoes with that, or I could have put it in my savings account, or oh, that would have paid for my hair. Any kind of all those things. But instead, all I did was pay it right back to a bank. Not a good situation to be in.
And also add small things. Look for the cars with no annual fees on it, and the cashback options. Like you can pay down your credit card with the cashback you get wanting to spend on. Like many cars now provide 3%, 2% cashback, which is really helpful. It adds up over the year.
Absolutely. Well, I know I just looked at the time. We have 1 minute left. Ooh. So yeah, we do. We only have 4 pages left, but this talks about zero interest rates. Anytime you can find a credit card with a zero interest rate and you've got a balance, take advantage of that, but also make a plan. Don't just switch the card over. Make a plan and say, well, now while I have this 0% interest rate or 2% interest rate, I'm going to pay this much money so I can get that interest down before the higher rate kicks in. And then this is all about cybersecurity. And as we were probably during the pandemic, and maybe even still sit on the phone, are doing so much more from home, this is some information that you can take away on how to protect yourself online, because phishing, vishing, all of that stuff is getting more and more prevalent. In fact, I received some kind of random text yesterday that UPS didn't have my right address. Well, I just happened to know I didn't have anything being delivered by UPS, so I just hit delete on it. But what if you're one of those who orders quite a bit? You may have thought it was real. So just be cognizant of all of that. And I know we're at the top of the hour, and I apologize for not giving anyone any time for questions, but thank you so much for all of your attention today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Stacy and Artie. I appreciate you so much, your time and energy in this phenomenal presentation. And we thank you for being a great partner and for joining our financial webinar program. Just like to announce that we're kicking off our 2022 and 2023 bank webinar program starting October 20th. And it's actually going to start with an in-person program. We're going to be actually in person every other month starting in October. And our very first program starting off October 20th will be on debt management. And you talked a lot about that today. And we try and tie in all of our programs with what we talk about every day with our clients. And you covered so much. Thank you so much. You covered so much of what we talk about every single day and helping our clients become financially successful. So we appreciate all your information and all of your time in this presentation today. And we thank everyone. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know and I can forward them to our presenters today. And thank you again. And thank you for everyone for attending. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.